Hey there, everyone. Hope you're having a great start to the week. Mike Meback with KTVU Fox 2 in the San Francisco Bay Area. Once again, talking money and COVID-19 with Winnie Sun, Managing Director of Sun Group Wealth Partners. Thanks for being back, Winnie.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Hey, start to the week. Good start for investors in the stock market right now. I think the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, at least at this time, we're talking up about 3%, if not more. Now, part of that is data coming in regards to a vaccine, but also investors, I think, reacting to what Jerome Powell said over the weekend on a 60 Minutes interview, and that is the Fed has a lot more ammunition if need be. Could you dive into that a little bit? I mean, obviously, the investors like what they heard there.
Absolutely. I think that's one thing that we wanted to see. We wanted to see our Fed chairman completely all in and understanding that those of us here in America who are suffering, that need help with unemployment or need help with their families or childcare, whatnot, that we have the government support. So Jerome Powell said that absolutely this is something that he said long term will be costly, but he said it's absolutely worth it for Americans to get the aid that they need right now. So I think you're seeing that reflected in the market. People are feeling more optimistic and most importantly, feeling just a little bit more normal, feeling that there's going to be support and perhaps in the near future, that things are going to get back to where they were just a few months ago.
No, talking about support, I mean, right now, the U.S. Senate debating this HEROES Act that the House passed late last week, $3 trillion. And I know there's still a lot of debate to go till this gets onto the president's desk, and we'll have to see if the president signs it. But if it goes through, if it gets the green light, what else does this mean? I mean, and we'll start different categories, but more money in the pockets for certain individuals, obviously.
Absolutely, Mike. First and foremost, this does resolve the question of, is there going to be another round of stimulus checks, right? Many of you have received a $1,200 check and perhaps some monies for your dependents as well. And you're looking and saying that's not quite enough. So the HEROES Act, if it gets passed, and we're hoping at least a good portion of it does get passed, it will give us another $1,200 per person up to, depending on your income limitations, and up to $2,400 if you're married. And here's the nice thing about the HEROES Act too, if it gets passed, it's $1,200 per dependent up to 3. So each family could get up to $6,000. Now, what it is missing that we were hoping for is to see sort of some consistent relief each and every week so that Americans could plan on their grocery spend for the week, how they're going to make rent for the week. But unfortunately, that
Not
was a
one check.
notable.
Right. Right now, it would just be one big check.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Does it touch on, student loans, relief at all, debt? Does it touch on rent payments, mortgage, or is it just here's your check, do what you want with it?
Well, the HEROES Act, $3 trillion is a lot of money. And so far, it does actually address student loans as well as private student loans, giving students some relief, up to $10,000 being lent per student that they would then pay in installments back to the federal government. So that's on the student loan area. In terms of renters and mortgage relief, this is a big section, especially in many parts of the country where, first off, renters aren't in a position to be able to make rent because a lot of them are unemployed. And then what happens then to the person who owns the mortgage, who then also isn't able to pay their own mortgage? How are they going to handle and not and then there's a whole other area where a lot of people who have mortgages are then landlords. So it's almost a trickle effect. So that's being addressed as well in this HEROES Act. So let's hope this part keeps.
Sure. What about, have you had people come up to you, or what do you tell certain individuals who say, look, I'm lucky enough to have a job, I'm working, I'm getting a consistent paycheck, but I'm also getting that stimulus money. Um, Tuck it away. I mean, what's the recommendation? And again, I guess it just depends on everyone's different scenario and where they're at, but what's
Mhm.
best to do with that money if indeed you are getting a paycheck at the same time?
Yeah, if you're getting that paycheck at the same time and you're feeling stable, and then and perhaps you're still contributing to your 401k. I actually just spoke with a client last week, was in that scenario. I said, if you're in that situation, why not start an IRA right now? Right now, start a Roth IRA if you qualify, or go to a traditional IRA and perhaps talk to your financial advisor, seeing if you can maybe do a Roth conversion. An advantage of that then is you're stocking away money into the Roth IRA, for example. which is after tax dollars, but can serve as not only an emergency fund if you need to tap from it, but it can also serve as retirement savings if you don't need to use that money. So it's sort of, in my mind, it's sort of like the golden egg way of saving your money, especially now, but also long term if you have time ahead of you. You're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, even if you're 50s, because if you think about it, most of us retire in our 60s or 70s, and that's still plenty of years ahead.
I'm one of those that jumps on the tax filing season. I like to get it over with. I'm very, here are my documents ready to go, and my accountant always says, you're the first one always, every time. You're the first one. But so I did file early before, the pandemic really hit our country. I know there's been an extension. It wasn't April 15th this year. So for those who are in the middle of this, is there any benefit to actually filing, let's say now, or is there any benefit to waiting a little bit longer?
Well, I think, Mike, you did a great thing by filing in January. So I think if you're in a situation where you're going to be receiving a refund of any size, then filing early is always a great idea. In addition, if you are thinking you're going to have to pay taxes, filing now isn't a bad idea either. Filing, not waiting until July. Filing now, because you actually can make those tax payments that you owe all the way to July. So get your records cleared and file your taxes, get that behind you and move on. And that way you can really plan your finances going forward. I don't like being in limbo. So I definitely think there's a big advantage to moving now that we're in May. Get those documents together, file your taxes, and move on.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So if I were to owe $2,500 to the federal
Mhm.
government, you can stretch that out all the way through July, did you say, or up to July?
Until the tax filing date.
Okay, got
Mhm.
it. Credit card debt. Unfortunately, many Americans have it before the pandemic and probably have it now. Um, is it better to defer a payment? I mean, I know before all this, it was best to just put something on it, even if it's the minimum. Is that kind of the same mentality? If you're stretched thin here and you're like, God, I just don't want to make a payment. I'd rather spend that money on groceries right now.
Yeah, I totally understand. Right now, unfortunately, so many of us are juggling that decision. But I would say if you were in the first scenario that we had just talked about, and you're in a situation where you're still receiving some paycheck and you have the ability to pay your credit cards, but you're like debating whether or not to do it because just in case, right? What if I might need them later on? I would say you're better off paying them off first. And the reason that is although you can defer your credit card payments, and a lot of credit card companies are allowing you to do so without a penalty, without reporting you to your credit bureau, which would impact your credit score. But most cases, almost all cases, the terms and conditions on your credit cards indicate that they are still allowed to continue to accrue interest on those balances if you don't pay them off in full. So you're better off paying them off in full if you can afford it. And then later on, if you need to tap them in the future, then at that point decide, because even 3 or 4 months of interest can really put havoc on your overall
Some
finances.
of those rates are, I mean, 18, 19, 20%
Hmm.
on those
Yeah,
cards.
absolutely. Some are even looking at in the 20% area. So unfortunately, that's just a reality. There aren't that many 0% cards out there right now. So you want to try and figure out, even if it means borrowing some money from a friend or family member or some other way to get that debt down. Whatever you're doing, get that debt down so your interest isn't so high. And even if you have to owe interest to your family member, for example, it's probably going to be lower than, right? In most cases, 16% or higher.
Yeah. Are you getting phone calls from people about getting their estate kind of planning in order, or at least inquiring about now's the time? What do I need? Let's get this ball rolling.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is something that was really an aha moment. A lot of people that we're talking to, they might know a friend or family member who has COVID or has had to have medical care in the last few months, and it's sort of they're sort of realizing that they don't have everything in place, and what we learned from the coronavirus, it can affect all of us. So if you feel like you're you haven't done a living trust yet. You haven't put pen to paper and put down your wishes on a will or pour over a will and all that. Right now is the time to do this, not only just to get your estate in order, but also to make those hard healthcare decisions. Because part of the estate planning process is to name your healthcare directive, who would make those decisions if you're in the hospital and you can't make those decisions. I know, like, my dad's been in the hospital back and forth many times the last few weeks, and time and time again, the hospital asks for those documents. They ask, well, if he's in really dire situation, what's the decision, right? Do they have to take extreme measures? So think about those decisions. Think about the people that you love. If you make those decisions for the people that you love, it's so much easier for them to follow those instructions if you're in a situation where you can't make those decisions. And the good news is you can definitely do this now. I've talked to several estate planning attorneys. I know there's online services as well. You can do it all via Zoom and or web conferencing. And the last moment, you just want to make sure you get your trust notarized. That's critical. Most people forget that last step. Sign it and get it notarized.
So to then notarize, yeah, I mean, that's got to be in person, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case. I had to do a notary just a few weeks ago for my refinance, and it was really awkward, but you can do it. I had the person come to the garage, we set it up, we made sure the table was wide, and you just get it done.
Yeah, clean the pens, so forth and so on.
Hmm.
What else do I want to talk to you about? Oh, there's a lot of donating going on these days, and for those families who want to donate to certain causes, does the CARES Act play a role at all in regards to uh, down the road when it comes down to tax season on donations?
Yeah, this is a big one. And I know everyone's giving a lot of people that I've been talking to, myself including you, I'm sure, we're looking for ways to give. And a lot of times we're thinking, okay, great, because you want to give because for the right reasons, but pay attention to this. There are tax benefits to giving. Now, that did get changed recently with the tax laws, where previously we weren't able to deduct quite as much anymore, depending on how you're itemized and whatnot. But thanks to the CARES Act, that has changed slightly. So if you're in a situation where you're looking to give and maybe give even more, then I would certainly make a phone call to your tax accountant or your CPA or bookkeeper, whoever it may be who helps you with your taxes, because there are records that you'll want to keep as you make these donations, because there are benefits that came through the CARES Act that didn't exist prior to that. And if things change in the future, you want to make sure your records are intact, because those benefits are due to you.
Got it. All right. Winnie Sun, Managing Director of Sun Group Wealth Partners. Appreciate the conversation once again, and have a very safe week.
Thank you so much, Mike. Take care.
Okay, you too.